Hello and welcome to the Rubber Duck Dev Show. I'm Chris and I'm here with a bunch of people. We're going to forego the normal intros because there's just a bunch of people here. We've got Fair, we've got Zed, we've got Sire, we've got Creston, we've got Vlavo, V, I always call him V, and Pineapple. So, you know, lots of big wigs in the Discord DragonRuby community. We're going to have a lot of fun today. But before we get to having the fun, we're going to announce some other fun. So let's do this. Let me get my announcements up. Hey, James. Welcome to the show. All right. So first announcement is next Thursday, there will be no RDDS because of the 4th of July holidays. So we'll be back the next week with our regular show, but next week, we're not going to have one, because I need a break. The next exciting announcement for the DragonRuby community is the DragonRuby Guild Hall concept is taking shape. I've been working behind the scenes with Accidents, to kind of formulate and develop this Guild Hall idea. So, next week I will be putting forth the, kind of final rough draft proposal in the Discord so that you guys can take a look and give some input, and then we'll start moving that forward. What we're trying to do is drive more community engagement in the ecosystem part. So while they're working on the engine and the core stuff, we can kind of help coordinate the community building of the ecosystem around the DR engine. So we are doing that. Then I'm also going to start, because I've had such a positive, good, fun response to DragonRuby Month, and people seem to be really enjoying this community stuff. I'm going to work on starting some regular DR meetups through Discord so that we can meet like this without having to worry about streaming, but just meet, talk about DR stuff, hang out, have fun. Levi, I feel like the stream is a tad quiet. Is it? Well, turn your volume up, Levi. I mean, good grief, man. I love giving Levi a hard time.
Levi's gonna Levi.
Yep. So be on the lookout for that. I may reach out to try to draft a person or two to help me get that set up and get that going. The other fun thing that we've got going, or that I'm going to be working on, and I am definitely going to need some help on this, I'll be reaching out for volunteers, is we are going to set up a DragonRuby VirtueConf. So I'm gonna target doing a first 8-hour long virtual conference where we can have speakers and questions and all that stuff. I talked to Amir about this, and he wants to eventually get to a live conference, but those take a lot of work to put together. So we're going to kind of step our way towards it and start with a virtual conference. There's Amir. Hey, Amir, welcome.
Hi.
We were just talking about, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and push forward with trying to get a VirtueConf together as a stepping stone towards the big ones.
Yeah, I guess this is a little bit more complicated.
It is. Yeah. So, we got a lot of fun things that I'm going to try to do with the community. So I will be reaching out for volunteers. I hope people get excited about that stuff and want to participate, but, check out the Discord next week. I'll be giving more detailed information about this stuff, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys, some heads up that this is coming. And we have one more fun announcement for the channel. Creston.
Okay, so I actually finally started using DragonRuby, and I said, "Oh crap, this is too easy." I think.
Yeah.
So it's pulled me back in. So because of that, I'm like, all right, I think I'm gonna make a game. So this is not, and so basically we're starting another stream on the channel called Coding with Creston,
Nice.
where I'm going to be coding my game that the working title now, as you can tell from the backdrop, is Space Influenced, and I'm calling it Space Boss. So
Spaceballs? That'd be awesome if you called it Spaceballs.
well,
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say Spaceballs too, but
There's no trademark problems
There's
at all.
at least one quote I could make here, but it's probably not stream appropriate.
The thing with trademarks, just go ahead and do it. Wait for the DMAC, and
There
then
you go.
change it.
Get your
well, I
publicity first.
did say it was a working title, so Anyway, Space Boss, because basically the idea is you're going to be a boss of your own ship and be able to, go out there. So I'm not considering it open source. It's something that I actually want to release as a game. So whatever state it's going to be, whenever I release, maybe I charge $1, $4, or $5, whatever it is. So it'll be something that I'll release, and it'll take however long it takes to develop. So that's basically the announcement with regard to that. And planning to start the first stream tomorrow afternoon, my time. So pretty soon. So the timing, probably I'll do 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at least to start, and then see who's on, if anyone, or what people would like to see. So I want to hear feedback on, like, my idea is 3, 4, or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, one of those time frames for a couple hours. So looking for feedback on the stream or in the chat, what makes the most sense, people think. So that's basically that.
So I figured you guys would be all excited that we finally got him pulled to the dark side here. And that's a win for the DR
Dragon
community.
side.
Yeah, that's right. And I was excited about him streaming this because this gives people a chance to see, because I stream and I'm kind of like, my game development is more like comic relief than actual game development. And, but you'll get to see a side of somebody who's trying to do this as a commercial product. So there will be a big difference. And I think that's valuable for the community to kind of see both sides of that. We've got one person that's just exploration, learning, fooling around, trying to figure things out and tooling and stuff. And another person who's actually trying to do this as a commercial product. And you'll get to see the dichotomy there and the differences between how you need to approach things. So I was excited about that for kind of filling that gap. Yeah, go ahead.
So Creston, is this your first foray into game programming, or have you done so before?
I've used Unity about a decade ago. I played around, did some stuff with Unity. I actually did release some videos of a game I was making. It was a course in 3D. It was a space game. It has a lot of the same things that I'm intending to put in this one, except of course this one's going to be 2D only. So I'm not trying to jerry rig doing 3D, but so that's the only experience. I've never released anything. So.
Right on though.
Yeah. All I am is a programmer and database administrator and sysadmin. So.
And loves gaming.
Experience and loves gaming and experience playing gaming. So that's it.
So yeah,
Actually,
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
From the stream description, it says that you two both do Ruby as a day job.
Yep.
What do you do with Ruby as that day job? Is it web dev, or is it actually something more interesting?
I do web dev. Well, actually, I do back-end platform development. My whole career has been full stack development in Ruby, and .NET. But I now do Ruby back-end platform, so I don't deal with any of the front-end JavaScript-y stuff, CSS anymore. But it is still a Rails app.
And I'm a full stack Ruby on Rails developer with a big concentration in the back end with databases and whatnot. So the fact I can't really have a database, and we could probably get into this discussion.
So you're
with-
saying that you're going to be going off the rails with this?
Absolutely.
Oh,
That was
ouch.
the setup. That was the
Ruby, not
payoff.
Rails.
I
Ruby,
like
not
it.
Rails.
It is a lot. I will say that having done this, you know, getting into the DragonRuby and going through the changes and stuff, it has been extraordinarily helpful for my day job in the Rails world because it's causing me to think in Ruby in a different way than I normally would in Rails. And so I've been able to translate this to solving some real world problems in my day job because I've thought differently about how Ruby is working. So it's been a really interesting kind of journey. I want to say welcome to the chat. We've got, let's see, Accidents here. Oh, yay, he made it. Wildfiler. Yeah, Wildfiler is coming on the show in, 2 weeks, I think, to talk about DR Tiled. So that'll be fun. Apparently, you know, the DragonRuby shows are doing so well that I keep inviting more DragonRuby people on. So it may just become a DragonRuby channel. I don't know at this point, but that's cool.
Man, part of it's like this is kind of, you know how Ruby Kaigi has got that kind of keynote thing where they have the core contributors and, you know, on the stage with like the yellow t-shirts. Like this is the start of those kind of things. Like,
yeah.
And you know, people forget that it starts with these small communities and then builds up from there. And then yeah, we might be on a stage with 600-700 people flying into, you know, some remote location like Hawaii or something, and we got, because of the palm
There,
trees,
if you pay for it.
I mean, they're like, never want to put anyone out financially. Like that's one of the big things. Like I want it to be, you know, all the sponsorship and stuff, and then having a stage with the people, right?
Or we
That'd
could
be
do
cool.
it in beautiful Orlando, so I don't have to travel. But you know,
I've been to
something like
Florida
that.
before. I don't like the
Swamp?
humidity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I live in
the
it.
alligators and crocodiles. They're the scary parts. But
No,
yeah,
that's
just something
like
to-
people's
something to think
dogs
about.
down here. You just see, you know, we just walk the alligators down the sidewalk and stuff.
So yeah, please participate, because you know,
Yeah, and
it's the
this
seeds.
yeah, this will be good. And I know Watts, welcome to the show. Nathaniel Watts, but how do you do?
How's it going? Oh, I just let people choose their own preference.
All right.
A man works, so it, yeah, people call me all sorts of things.
All right, I'll stick with Watts because that's easy for my old brain to deal with. It's one syllable and it's short and it's easy. So I know that you had talked to me about being interested in like helping spruce up the docs and starting to do some shorter tutorials, which is really great because I think there's a gap to fill there, and that's a big help to the community. And I know that Amir's big thing is reducing barrier to entry and keeping things simple and helping people get into this as easily as possible. And I think having good documentation and bite-sized tutorials is a huge help to that kind of thing. So I appreciate you stepping up to work on that. And these other
Yeah, we'll see. I have 3 young kids, so we'll see how fast I can move here. But
I know how
like
that goes.
the sample apps and stuff like that, like the examples are phenomenal, right? But I
Mhm.
feel like it's almost to me, it's kind of like a theme of like how to draw an owl. It's like you draw the circles, and then like that's step 1. You draw these circles, and step 2, it's like draw the owl. Like I feel like that there's, and that's just because you know I've been doing Ruby for 13, 14 years, but this is my first foray into great game development. So to me, there's a significant gap, right? So as you know, in technology, we kind of forget what we know.
Mhm.
The things that we already know, you know what I mean, like that are so easy for us. And so I'm like, well, if I can translate my learning experiences into, hey, this is what I struggled with, or this is the stuff that I didn't know about. If I can help other people and help remove that barrier of entry, it could be a good thing to be the newbie. Hey, I'm a yellow belt though. So
That's right. That's right.
We all started somewhere. Don't worry, we all started somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
Actually, I have a related question to that. how many people here came to DragonRuby because they know Ruby and wanted to get into game development? And how many came here because they want to get to make games, but this is how they learned Ruby?
I am all the Ruby I do is DragonRuby.
Okay, I'm not the only.
I'm surprised.
And that's kind of what I focused on with the formation of the docs and that kind of perspective of when it comes to like the sample apps, when you get like the Nintendo Dev Kit and console, you get a directory. Here's the sample apps, and that's kind of you've got the API docs and they're vanilla HTML pages, a lot like what you see in DR, but yeah, the meat was the sample. Like, this is the order you go in, and we're not getting support from very, very large companies is much different than the DR community. But that was like the lifeline. I clicked the first directory, I read the code, I'm like, okay, I get that. Directory number 2, and that was the kind of the learning process with that platform. And a lot of that mentality is how I approached the docs as they exist today. Is that you don't know Ruby, you have maybe some foundational understanding of programming, but it's like this is how you learn from that perspective. And so to everyone's point, it can be incompatible with people that know Ruby really well but want to get into game dev. At that point, it's like, well, I just need the APIs because in my head I can formulate and compose, and I just need to know what function I need access to. But then there's a incompatibility there.
Yeah, and I will say that's kind of the. Sorry, go ahead.
I sort of had the other problem when this I could see the calls, like you just shovel stuff into ARG's outputs, but I needed sort of more sort of understanding of basic Ruby syntax, and that's the thing I was really looking for when I first got into this nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah, and Levi says, in my experience, reading the method implicitly brings more insight than the docs. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the thing that have realized over my career is different people learn different ways. So, like, me reading code is not the way I learn, but I work with lots of people, and lots of people here, they don't want to read docs ever. They want to read code because that's the way that they absorb things. And so I think one of the gaps we have in the community that I think would be good to fill is giving those different ways, those different learning entry points. Because for me, coming from the way I learn and how I've learned to learn code over my career, coming into DR was a bit of a leap for me because it wasn't set up the way I'm used to learning code. I'm not saying it was set up badly. It's just not the way I was used to. And so learning how to learn DR took some effort for me.
Well, and if you look at a lot of other really popular development projects, I feel like Ember.js, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it here, but like their website, they have a difference between guides and docs, right? And it's 2 different formats. If you're like, hey, I just want to be able to dig into what these things do, these functions, what are their arguments, what's the return value? I want to see some examples there versus like, how do I take these pieces and make something out of it, right? So there's like you're saying, Chris, there's a bit of 2 different paths. And so I'd be certainly curious to hear everyone's thoughts on like how we could bring all those together. Because I mean, honestly, the information in the docs it's super meaty, right? Like it's great. You can find a ton of information there, but for me as a newbie, I'm like, holy smokes, there's so much going on. How do I, like Chris, you mentioned, like, how do we reduce barrier of entry to where it's a little bit easier to ingest at first? Because DragonRuby is extremely powerful, obviously, and there's a lot going on, so yeah, how do we kind of level the playing field so that anybody coming in, whether they're experienced with Ruby, never done Ruby before, experienced with game dev, never done game dev before, that it's valuable for all parties?
I
Yeah.
did a talk for some of the folks at the St. Louis Ruby. They did a virtual comp for this, and I kind of talked about what I saw the progression of the APIs. You know, starting with arrays and moving on to hashes, then starting render targets, and so on and so forth. And I think that is something that could be discussed at different levels. It's like you only need this next thing until the last one. You're like, wait, I can't reorder. I'm using the sprite. I'm not using sprites and text. How do I reorder them? Okay, well now you're ready to go to the next belt. That kind of a thing.
And I think that's another piece of like observation or feedback that I'd like to hear about is that the API for DR is relatively tiny, and the like the zen of DR or the aha moment of DR is the composition of those things. So you see the API and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, there's nothing here. But then it's like, wait, a render target is just a sprite, except or it acts like a sprite at the top level, but then it's just another thing you shovel things into. Or wait, there's no collision, but there's all these geometry APIs, and they compose with all of the different ways to represent a primitive, and then suddenly it's like the combination of those things is where the real power comes in. And that's kind of a tricky part with DR is that it doesn't have those like API functions like draw sprite in camera, because you just compose those little tiny functions together to get those more powerful features. And
Right.
that's always been a mental struggle for me, is that you got your APIs, but after that it's like there's nothing there. Like, well, what do I do with these?
Right.
Yeah,
And it's that composition that becomes trickier.
I really love where the API sits. It doesn't get in your way, and you can advance kind of down as far as you want to. So you can start, I looked at Godot and Unity and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be watching tutorial videos for 2 weeks before I actually understand what I'm trying to do. And then it'll probably be wrong anyway, right? Whereas what I did on day one was wrong, but at least it looked like a game. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah,
I
and
think
to make it more
where the
right, it wasn't
challenges-
it wasn't hard, right? It was like,
No,
okay, I just gotta tweak these little things, and it might not be perfect, but it's more right. And you never feel painted into the corner, but it's the compositional aspect makes it a little bit more challenging too.
Yeah, I painted myself into a corner because I made what was essentially a simulation. I was like, well, I didn't really write a game here, so let's start over. Let's write a game this time.
Well, and like Amir, you just listed off a bunch of things I've never heard of in my life. So how do you take these primitives that are extremely powerful and translate them to, because you can have somebody who's just like, I'm just really interested in building games. I want to know about this, right? But because the primitives are very low level, to your point, how do you compose these together to actually build not just the things on the screen and some things that do stuff, but like, hey, this is kind of the structure of what games are. You have nodes or you have sprites, or this is what these mean. So kind of that mixture between guides and docs.
Yeah, and I think
I think that delineation is good. Calling things guides versus here are the API docs and here are the guides.
Mhm.
And I think like the sample apps, or I call them like reference implementations, they all start with like 99 underscore. Those are kind of like, you want to make a real platformer, here's what platformer code looks like. Or you want to make a turn-based RPG, this is kind of like some of the foundational concepts you need to think about. And those would be good candidates to turn into guides.
Yeah, and I think too, from what Pineapple pointed this out earlier, I think we have kind of two different starting paths. We have Ruby devs that want a game and game devs that want a Ruby. And the starting of your learning path is going to be different. You're going to end up in the same place, but how you get there is a different path into it, depending on which side of that you're starting from.
Or even just, I've never done games or anything, right? But DragonRuby makes it really easy for me to just get my thoughts out onto the screen. How do you go from there too?
Yeah. So I've noticed too that I'm really excited about this because I love the community building stuff, and I love the fact that we're starting to think about tooling and libraries and ecosystem expansion without Amir having to do all of it. I'm sure Amir likes that too. So that's good because, you know, Amir concentrating on the engine stuff, the core foundational engine stuff is what we need as a community, that we can use to then expand into libraries and things. And one of the things that I'm wanting to do with the guild hall is to have the community start developing out that ecosystem and putting libraries and tutorials and things together in different areas so that people can use that. For instance, on Tuesday, I was talking about heaps because I was doing A-star implementations, and there are ways to do that, but the best way to do the G-cost, I think it is, yeah, the G-cost is to use a heap instead of just an array. But yeah, there's a sample for that. And there is actually. But then I started thinking, well, has anybody developed for DR a heap implementation? Because that's useful for more than just A-star. It's a good way to search and order binary trees.
I have to ask sort of a fairly basic question here. What's a heap?
Basically, it's a binary search algorithm, a binary tree, with kind of special rules for how it subdivides. And A-star uses it to kind of look down through the paths and find out what the optimal path is based on cost. But it's just basically a binary tree search, essentially. But those kind of things, it would be nice to have a library to say, hey, I need a heap class in my DR program. There is one. It's out here in the community. I can just pull the heap class in. Not that I'm against building your own stuff, and in a lot of cases, building your own stuff is good, especially if you're learning. But if you're trying to get something out the door, I don't have time to build my own heap class. You know.
Yeah, and if you can find a pure Ruby gem, there's probably one out there.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the biggest challenges with the existing Ruby gems is that they're good gems, but that progression of I'm gonna start with just like a minimal setup and then evolve into some of those like really complicated concepts. So as you were talking about the heap, maybe in my head I start with an array because I don't know about this heap construct, and then later on I want to use heap, and then suddenly I pull in a gem, and everywhere where I started using arrays and hashes now has to be converted into classes with inheritance hierarchies and all that stuff, and that chasm that you have to cross to leverage those kind of libraries is because the Ruby gems are so mature from the perspective of, oh, why didn't you start with classes from the beginning? And in my head philosophically, it's like, well, because I didn't need it. I don't want to bring a cannon to a knife fight kind of thing. So one thing to keep in mind with the libraries that people construct is that you have to keep that same thing in mind, is that the person that's leveraging it might have been starting with arrays or tuples. So how do you guide? The API has to be amicable to those really, really simple value type constructs, and then allow for more of the advanced stuff to be maybe done with classes or hashes or some other kind of structure, but don't force the person into that structure from the moment that they download the library. It's difficult, right? The incompatibility is there. So crafting those libraries is a challenge with that idea in mind.
And that's one of the reasons why I'd love to see the community doing this, because then you have more brains thinking about the different aspects of this, let's say, heap library. Because I could just go write a heap library, but then I don't have the input from lots of smart people saying, like Amir saying, yeah, but what about this? Right? And so if we communitize that, there are so many smart people just in this call right here. You know, and the DR community at large, there are so many smart people who think about things differently and think about different aspects of the game dev and can think about, all right, let's build a library here that's simple but accommodates DR as a whole, not just this game that Chris is writing, right? So,
can I piggyback on Chris as well? You know, you mentioned that Amir should be focused on the engine itself. I think also Amir is like DR's biggest cheerleader. Like I've known about DR for a long time, Ruby Motion, stuff like that. But seeing his RubyConf talk that had the scene where it had like this moving water and the leaves and the person in the boat. Like to me, that was like a back of my head blowing off moment to where it's like, okay, Ruby Motion or DragonRuby is not just this toy framework. Like it can actually, like if I were to have a vision for a game, like I could actually build it and sell it in a way that is, you know, congruent with like what I see on my Nintendo Switch app store or whatever. So giving Amir the margin to really say like, I mean, obviously it's a commercial framework. I mean, people have released games, but seeing more of those examples, like when you sit down and you're like, I want to make games, let me check out these game engines or whatever. And you see, oh, wow, you can do that in DragonRuby, you can do that, right? And not just like boxes going around and shooting lasers or whatever, right? But like you see these fully fledged really examples. I feel like that's what really hooks people as well. Because a lot of people want to, I mean, I've scoured the internet for like, all right, what about Godot? What about Pygame? Like Unity, all these things. If I'm going to invest my time into this thing, can I realize the dream or the vision that I have for the game that I want to build? Giving Amir the time to say like, it's not just the hard math problems that can be solved in DragonRuby, but it can look really great too.
mm-hmm.
Like, I think that would really help in the selling of like DR being a great tool set to invest your time and resources into.
Yeah. And the sample apps, in the sample apps channel or show and tell channel, there are some beautiful, absolutely beautiful, like,
totally.
yeah, you know, Zed stuff every time Zed posts about it, it's just like, wow, like there's some really cool things happening there, and they're not on the call right now, but of course, right when I name drop them, I've forgotten their username, but they do a lot of like their color theme is like, I know it's one of their games because it's got like a purplish green.
I think is it Little Boxes you're thinking of?
Little Boxes, exactly. And every time I see, you know, one of the things they're revealing is just like, this is the artistic aspect. It's wonderful. It really is cool. And
even though the thing they're doing most recently isn't actually purple or green.
Yeah, but it's got that same as I know Little Box.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the music thing.
Oh yeah, that the sound synthesis stuff is just mind blowing. And like, how are you doing?
Yeah, they went from 4 colors to 2 colors now. So.
Yes.
I'm colorblind, so we're.
Yeah, they went. I'm just doing something amazing with just black and white. It's like fantastic, great job. How'd you do this?
Yeah, one of the things I've been very excited to see in the Discord since I haven't been there very long. I'm still a DR newbie in the community. But I've seen just in the, I don't know, 8 months, I guess, 8 or 9 months that I've been part of the community, it's had very, very large growth, explosive growth. And I'm excited for that because what that means is everybody in that community brings something awesome and unique that they can put into the community. And that gives the people in the community a chance to do what they're very good at. It gives them the time and the space to do what they're good at while somebody else does the stuff that they're not good at. Right? And I think that what you end up with is a rising tide floats all ships kind of scenario there. So you know, like one of the things that I was really jazzed about is Fair made this really cool thing called Dragon Checkers, right? And because I'm coming from the background of RSpec, right? I really like those DSLs for testing. That's my comfort zone. And so, you know, now we've got something where Dragon Checkers is kind of approaching an RSpec like type DSL inside DragonRuby, which is really exciting to me. I never would have figured out how to do that, but somebody did. So Fair, tell us a little bit about why you kind of went in that direction. Why did you even bother doing that?
Because of you, basically. That was the I like. I don't know. I like, you know, that Ruby conference that keep Ruby weird from Austin. Like I find that Ruby has that kind of magic that not every other language has. Like it's some spice, you know, that it's. So I like to play a lot doing just programming stuff that comes to my mind. That ends up in a shit garden. I have a folder named shit garden. It's full of crap that I used to play, to learn, to yeah. Checkers was one of those experiments.
Cool.
The idea was to have something super minimal and simple, but super expressive at the same time. It's inspired a lot by RSpec, but without all the RSpec has a lot of things that I don't usually use. So a few years ago, I thought that could I make my own RSpec with the things I really like about it, and that was it. And it was there. I used it in a couple of other toy projects to test them. I never even released it as a gem. I just copied the file in the project, and like we do with DragonRuby, you know, like the same. And yeah, when you mentioned this, I thought, well, I probably could make it useful for DragonRuby. And yeah, it's so simple and so small that it was like 3 lines of code changed, and it was working with args and stuff.
Nice.
I never use it. It's a toy. So if you use it, we can do something about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking forward to. I'm trying to work it into when I can pull this into my stream and have a good stream to kind of dig into it, because I am actually excited about, because what that does for me is it takes my RSpec comfort zone and brings it inside DragonRuby, which is perfect for me, right? It's not perfect for everybody, but it's perfect for me.
Yeah.
So I'm very appreciative of the fact that, you know, we have a community that does stuff like this, and I can go, gosh, I wish there was an RSpec in DragonRuby, and Fair goes, I got one, you know? So that's really cool. And I love, so Levi tells me I've been in this Discord community since December 30th. So apparently I gave myself a nice Christmas present and joined this awesome community. So that's great.
I remember coming to visit you around Christmas time, and you were so excited. Oh, look at what you could do in Ruby. Look at this. I didn't know you could do this.
Yep.
I could make a parallel that isn't something that happened to me, but I can imagine it happen to some people. Are you old enough to remember the era of 8-bit computers?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like getting one of those for Christmas, discovering you can make games with it. That's sort of what discovering DragonRuby felt like for me, except it wasn't in December.
That's a good analogy. Absolutely. So, you know, while we're on the subject of community, I think one of the big strengths of DragonRuby, I mean, it's a very good engine and it's set up well, but I think one of the big strengths is the community here. I've been parts of lots of communities, and I have never been part of a community that is so interested in what's going on in the community, right? They're not just people there to say, what can I get out of this? You know, what free crap can I get? These are people, almost universally, everyone I talk to in there is, I want to see how I can help make this better. Right? And that's a fantastic place to be as a community. And one of the reasons that I'm wanting to kind of do some of these things and help push some of these community initiatives forward is because I see a huge potential in this community for exploding DragonRuby into something really, really special and big. And I know, like, Sire, you came into the community roughly around the same time I did, I think. What was it about DragonRuby that kind of drew you in? Because you've black belted, right? You've been in the Discord. Like, every time I go into Discord, I see Sire, right? But what is it about this community that kind of drew you in and kept you here?
I think it's the community. I mean, just everybody's interested in what you do. A lot of how do you say, encouragement on just the status of what you're working on, and it's almost like a camaraderie, I guess. I don't even know how I found DragonRuby. I think I actually seen one of your videos. And I was like, well, you can make games with Ruby. I tried Pygame. I did a lot of work in Godot, did a lot of work on my own where I've used Objective-C, Swift, all that stuff to do my own game stuff. But as I was telling Amir when I first joined, sometimes starting from scratch or just having just the foundation stuff can be a bit frustrating until you actually learn and become, how do you say, affluent's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Where you have proficient, there we go. Where you become proficient in it. And I feel like my previous experience with just the other game engines and just doing stuff on my own actually did help me like go get proficient with DragonRuby a little bit quicker than some others would, I guess, but also helping the community too, is, when people have questions. And I think I'm the one that mostly has questions, but I feel good when I'm able to actually give a pointer and actually be correct once in a while.
Yeah, it's nice.
And then watching your streams is awesome.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. One of the things that I like about this community too that I found really, really fun is I'm in there streaming, just flailing around in DragonRuby like a fish out of water. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's what I have.
Does anyone?
Well, probably not, but what I have is a chat community that'll get in there and say, "Oh, you forgot to do this. Oh, hey, how about this? Hey, Ferocious Fiend, what's happening, Seth?" And it's really nice to have that time to spend with the community and just work through problems and have people helping you. And it's kind of like group programming, but it's a really fun and cool way to do it. And it's very satisfying, except when Levi yells at me, but sometimes I just need that. But it's very satisfying the way that the community kind of brings people in, because it could very easily could have been, I come into this not knowing anything about game programming and people in here being snobbish and saying, we're not going to spend any time with you because you're a complete noob. That is not at all what happened. Every single person that I've talked to has been, oh, well, here's how you might do that, or here's a thing you might think about, or even just unsolicited, they're coming to help. which is really, really cool. And V, you've been on my show a few times helping me out in chat. What is it about the DragonRuby community that has kind of held you in and that has kind of stood out to you since you've been here?
Kind of the same thing that I don't know what's Ruby, and so I was looking to like get into game development and get back into programming since it's been so long since I'd done any. And I looked at Python and thought I knew a little bit, so I was learning that. And I didn't like Pygame, and I couldn't really find anything processing, could make stuff, but it didn't seem like I'd be able to sell that. And I stumbled on DragonRuby, and yeah, you go to the community and it's like, hey, come on in, I can help you with that. And it didn't matter if I didn't know anything about game development. I didn't know anything about Ruby. It was like, come on, hey, yeah, sure. So it was just that welcoming. And so there's some things I loved about DragonRuby, like the hot reload thing. As being a script programmer, that was just like, you got me.
For me, when I go into Discord,
truly does feel like magic, that the hot reloading.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really use it all that much.
Yeah, a lot of people still close and reopen. I'm like, stop, just press save.
Guilty.
I tried to get
I don't mean,
so they can.
for me, it's not that I don't use it that into that. I remember that it exists. I don't really use it that powerfully.
Yeah, and it's you'll get there when you get there, maybe, and that's totally fine, right? It's just that it gets out of your way from that perspective, that common theme. And like when I go into other Discord servers, you get the bot that's like, hey, how's it going? Introduce yourself. And you go to the introduce yourself channel and you know that you're gonna just post something there and no one's gonna read it ever.
Guilty.
And yeah, and it's like when you join a Discord server and the fact that there's a new person is just completely ignored, and then you're sitting there going, what do I even say in this channel? Do I, what do I do? What is good? What is bad? How do I integrate? And then I just kind of lurk and never engage. And I think that's one of the most important things about our community is that, yeah, you come in like, well, why are you here? What are you interested in? Who are you?
What's your favorite game?
What's your favorite game? Please tell us. And and from that perspective, like getting that conversation, those icebreakers are really important because it makes them feel like I can just post here and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and chat, I'd be interested to know you because the folks in chat, most of them have been there much longer than I have. How has the community kind of progressed, and what have you seen? And I'd be interested in that too from you, Amir, because obviously you've been in the Discord community the longest. So what things have you seen grow up, and what are you excited about that's happening recently in the community space around DR?
Yeah, I just like that I don't have to answer all the questions. That part's great. And I think and obviously more than happy answering them, but gotta sleep, gotta take some time off and stuff. But
what's sleep?
Yeah, what's sleep?
A 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, just other people coming in and seeing like the idea of asking what the favorite game is as something that's valuable and not just fluff per se, but like a meaningful first interaction, and seeing it stick and just it's meaningful, right? It's not something that Amir just did and kind of falls off because it was just his thing and not such a great idea. So I'm glad that some of these interactions and are being spread the community and through the community naturally. It's like, this is normal. Of course, this is how you greet someone when they come in. So that part's really helpful. And yeah, there's facets of it where there's going to be challenges as we grow. More trolls, more spam. Lump, no, everything's fine. Like more spam, more trolls, and the thing is that everyone handles it. Like and they're very just kind, and try to be good with people that may be hesitant or contentious at a point, and it works out.
Yeah.
But that's always going to be I think a problem as communities get larger.
Yeah. But I have seen, you're right, I have seen a lot of really good ambassadors for DragonRuby in the community. There are a lot of people who are really conscientious about, we want to make this new person feel welcome and engage them. The community seems to inherently get that, which is good to see, because a lot of communities don't, especially communities in like dev type communities, because developers are typically very introverted type people. They don't like striking up conversations because that takes energy, talking to
I
talking
feel
to
called
people.
out by that.
Oh, don't, because I'm very that way. It's despite the fact that I do a live show, I am extraordinarily introverted. And you better believe that after I do this show and I've talked to people, I go and crash. Because it
I thought you were gonna
drains
say
me.
cry.
Well, that too sometimes. But it's nice to see, because there are so many dev communities where because people are so introverted, they don't reach out and try to engage other people, because it's just not their natural mode of being. But for some reason, and I don't know why this is in the DR community, but it is very much I want to reach out and get to know you type of community. And that's kind of odd for a dev type community, to be honest.
It's
very
kind of part of
enjoyable.
the culture. It's culture, and it gets repeated, and you learn to do it, and then other people learn to do it, right? So if you build that into the culture of the Discord, then it can continue to live on.
Yeah.
I was thinking, this saying from Ruby, like it's Mina Swan, much it's nice, so we are nice. I think something similar happens with Amir, because you're super open and super helpful and kind on the Discord, and that's super important, I think, and
I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, if you think about it, Mats is nice, and so Amir is nice, and so we are nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So DragonRuby is awesome because Mats is nice.
Yeah.
That's causally truth, right? Has to be.
Yeah,
Awesome.
The cultural aspect just kind of, it's a foundational thing of Ruby, and I'm glad to see it live on.
Or Ruby is the least painful language, and Ruby programmers are just in a better state of mind.
Yeah, we're not miserable.
We don't have to write Java. We don't have to write all this stuff.
Or
Right?
Lua.
Yeah.
Like,
Go ahead, Pineapple.
I'll talk about this. Okay. I just before discovering DragonRuby, I had been dabbling with game modding in Lua, and not having assignment operators in Lua really annoyed me. And also the list construct in Lua, it's basically trying to be an array and a hash at the same time, as far as I can tell.
That sounds gross.
Isn't that a table?
Yeah. I think it's from what I can tell, it's trying to be. You could use it as an array or a hash, or it just looked really messy. Like, those two were much harder to get past than having to remember that arrays start at 1.
Oh my gosh! Sorry.
That's just
That's just so wasteful.
Yeah, things get a lot trickier when you start like deleting keys from a hash table. So you've got this hash construct in Lua, and you're like, I'm going to delete the middle key. Things get weird.
Well, then I have to say I'm very happy that I found Ruby before I found Lua. That sounds nasty.
It's nice starting off. It really is a nice, like, a little, like, simple language if you don't have the experience. But then there's no other end. It's like, how do I? When you get that level of proficiency, you're hit with this wall of the language doesn't doesn't grow with me, and that's the tough part.
Yeah.
I started in HyperCard,
Oh, why?
HyperTalk for the win. Why?
Yeah.
Because my first computer was a Mac SE, and I spent many a days making my first game was a maze game, and I had 15 different cards. Each one was looked like a room that were you can only go specific directions, and I keyed it to the numbers on the numpad. So a 7 represented right and down, and then 8 was left, right, and down. And so I was very proud of that system. I tried to explain it to some non-programmers, and they were like, "Eh." But then I realized you could actually just use a bit field, 4 bits and whatnot. But I think HyperTalk wasn't that event. So, but yeah, that's what literally got me into programming with HyperCard. If it wasn't for that and that Mac SE, I probably would be a completely different person.
Accident says HyperCard was great. It's a shame it died.
Mm-hmm.
If you say
I
so,
was
I never
really
used
looking
it.
forward to 3.0. I was really looking forward to version 3.0, but I'm not sure if Steve was the one that killed it or Apple in general just killed it. But yeah, that was then from that I found Real Basic, which they call Zojo now, which cross-platform based on Basic, and then I got into Objective-C and subsequently Swift, and then I found Godot using that. Then and I've dabbled in Ruby, over the years, and did some scripting, and I actually helped automate our local volunteer radio station to download episodes of pre-recorded shows from other radio stations.
Cool.
And I actually got the person who was we kind of collaborated, but I got him into actually programming or networking. Actually, he told me at one point. I was like, huh. So he took my job. I'm like, but anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting journey in that regard, I guess. That I went from HyperTalk all the way to Ruby, and I still like the other languages. It just I for a while there, I was really heavily into Objective-C. I guess you could call that my I don't know what you call my weird phase. But yeah, I really do like Swift. But it doesn't work with DragonRuby, so there you go. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's my experience.
It's okay.
I
We're just
mean,
telling
it's
stories.
it's interesting to have to hear everyone's like origin story, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I see Levi's trying to stir up trouble in the chat again, because Levi will Levi. But I think Amir could add it as a target for DR. Come on, Levi. Because Amir needs more stuff to do. It's 2045, right after the circles. Is that when it's coming?
Right after circles. After circles.
All right. So, by the way, Amir, congratulations on the first DR Steam game being on sale. I know for a fact that you made at least one sale.
One sale, yep. I'm
At
going to make
least,
tens of dollars.
no, actually,
great.
I know you've made more than that because people were bragging about, hey, I got the game, and I was planning on playing that all day today, but then real life and work got in the way of fun. Damn it. So
I don't know if I could call that game fun.
That's I'm not sure if those two words might go together. I think you'll be more angry than enjoying it. But
it's
hopefully
really hard.
It is. It's a very, very difficult game.
Do you know when a Dark Room is coming out?
It's going to come out, I think, in 7 to 10 days. So.
Oh, okay.
That'll be the next big.
What about your
at least one sale
Metroidvania Portal style game?
I think that corresponds to the segfault you were describing.
Yeah. Yep. Basically. For the Metroidvania, that's kind of still in pre-production. I've got the general idea of what the mechanics will look like. Now it's about, well, how can I make that first experience and chapter feel like something like, oh, I want to get the next chapter kind of thing. And so that's the tricky part. How do you get the hook within the first 20 seconds, and then how do you keep them wanting to play? long enough to where they reach the end of that first chapter, go, I need to follow this game and continue to see what progress is made. Yeah, after this release happens, that's going to be one of the primary things I concentrate on.
Cool. And for me, that was seeing that come up. I had it on my wish list like a week ago, and then seeing an email come from Steam saying, hey, something on your wish list is on sale, or is ready for sale. And then seeing that in the Steam, that was, for me, a big validation of DR and what it can do, because that's, you don't see a lot of stuff on Steam that's not written in like Unity or big AAA things, right? So I think that was a huge validation. We are up on time. Oh gosh, this was so much fun, and I really appreciate all you folks taking time to come and hang out with us here. It was really exciting to meet all of you, and I'm excited to continue to do stuff like this in the community. I really am going to push forward trying to do some meetups and things like that, so that we can do more of this type of talking. If you're out there watching, if you see this and you're not sure about whether DR is the right gaming development engine for you and you want to do games, please come jump in the Discord, the DragonRuby Discord, because it is a fantastic community. You will have a lot of fun. You will have a lot of people supporting you and encouraging you. And it's a very nice place to be, and it's a beautiful language to program in. And it can do the games. We now have games on Steam, so it's a real thing. This just
it
isn't.
Sort of feels like Steam was the last sort of big sort of barrier to actual recognition.
Right.
Yeah. Just having the turnkey setup was really, really important.
Yeah.
So are you using the Twitter and Mastodon and all that for publicity and advertisement and stuff?
For different qualities of Twitter and
Mastodon,
Yeah. So anyway, I will of course be continuing to talk to folks in Discord. It was so exciting to meet you all in person. Amir, out of this group, Amir is the only one I'd actually talked to in person before. So it's exciting now to see faces and hear voices, and I dig that kind of stuff. That really just makes me happy. So I will continue to try to push some of this stuff forward, and I hope you guys had fun and enjoyed this. Hopefully we can do it some more. I will let's see. Let me get back to English here. I'm old. It's fine. It's good. Every week I screw this up. But it's if you did enjoy that, please like, subscribe, follow if you're on Twitch. Mash all the buttons and ding all the bells. It helps me out. It helps us out, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Because I like when people like me, and who doesn't? But anyway, we will talk to you folks later. Remember, there is no Rubber Duck Dev show next week for the 4th of July holidays. I will probably still, however, do Coding with Chris on Tuesday. So if anybody wants to come hang out and just
better
watch me be stupid in DR, I'll probably be there. And then tomorrow, check out Creston's new stream. He'll be starting out his stuff tomorrow. I will pressure him to get on the Discord so that he can start announcing things. I'll start, texting him about every 15 minutes saying, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And
do it.
it will be done. And I hope you guys have a lovely weekend, and we will see you soon. Until we see you again, happy programming.